2, storytelling for influence tonight. So, masterclass tonight in how to actually tell a really, really good story and how to make it influential and how to actually change hearts and minds. Now I'm just going to turn the aircon off. Didn't realise how noisy that would be. So, let's get straight into it. We haven't got any online yet, but this will end up on YouTube and as a masterclass. So Tom Fronick's watching. Fantastic, Tom. You'll love it. And Greg, thanks for joining in. Greg, this will be good for you, mate, with your marketing and the work you Vici. Welcome, everyone. So tonight it's all about storytelling. And Gemma, thanks for joining us. 3 reasons why you tell stories. Now, none of this that I train you in tonight is probably going to be, hey, Vici, hey, legend, how are you, brother? None of it you're probably going to find. Gary, Jack, thanks for joining in. You're not going to find this on the internet. You're probably not going to, I don't know, you can Google what I'm telling you tonight and there'll be elements of it there. I guess I've been lucky enough to be able to tell stories. Hey, Tom, I've been lucky and I'm still sore from that swim Monday night, man. And Dan Dalton. I've been lucky enough to tell a lot of stories in my life because as part of my work, I'm a speaker and I'm a trainer, I'm a consultant. And, I guess what I'm going to share with you tonight is what I know works and what I've tried and what I've practiced over and over and over again in some of the toughest, hello Will, good to see you tuning in, man, some of the toughest working environments. So a lot of the speaking work that I've done has been about safety, and most of the stories that I've told is around my own personal experience in a workplace incident. And that's obviously my favourite, and that's the one that I've told the most. And obviously after about 4 million times I've sort of refined that. But I've sort of taken that now and made it, told sort of other stories and as part of my training and consulting. And I think I've got this process worked out. And like last week or the week before, if you tuned into how to do public speaking, what you would have found, team, is we were 20 minutes into this live of 30 minutes and we hadn't even talked about how to do public speaking. Hello, Faith. And hello, Lewis Arroyo. Hey, champion. And tonight's going to be a little bit different. We're going to get into the meat of it a little bit sooner. In saying that, though, I've really got to give you some of the background. Hello, Dennis and Rhonda, Houston. I've got to give you some of the background because if you launch into storytelling without really thinking about it, now most of us do it in our daily life. Some people, and like I say, it's probably the bell curve of people. There's a small percentage of the people that have never told a story, can't tell a joke, and probably never will be able to. And then most of us have, the bell curve, most of us sitting there, we can probably tell a yarn if we're at the pub, and if we have a few beers, we probably tell a better yarn. And then there's probably a few out at the other end of the bell curve, the small percentage of people that are just naturally born storytellers, and you know who they are. And we've all got friends that when you're with them, they tell you tell them good yarns, and that's what it is. That's what storytelling is. But storytelling is a yarn with a message. A yarn with a message. Now, 3 reasons that you want to tell stories, especially in work, especially as a leader, especially as a speaker, because you want to influence. But I'm going to tell you the 3 really, really key reasons. The first one is to engage with other human beings. Hello, Jason. Hello, Paul. I'm trying to catch everyone as they jump on. Tom, the storytellers, absolutely. And the jokers at swimming training. Hey, Tom. So the engagement piece, right? So if you're someone who is a trainer, oh golly gosh, if you're a trainer or a speaker or a presenter, use storytelling, please. The whole death by PowerPoint thing is sort of gone well and truly. And, if you can work out, I guess, the message that you're trying to share with your group and engage individuals, and I mentioned some of this in the public speaking one, but when you're training, when you're speaking, when you're presenting, if you can use stories, because you can use stories to engage and you hit people in the hearts and in the mind and you get them to feed back about how they respond to that and have they had similar experiences, right? And in a training environment or in a coaching environment, in a coaching environment one-on-one, which I do a lot of too, storytelling is really powerful because it sort of opens people's minds up and hearts and say, well, have you had a similar experience to this? This is what happened to me. Could this happen to you? So engagement is really, really, it's probably the first one for most people. 90% of people, if you're not a speaker, for example, if you're a leader and you lead a business or you lead a team, or Gary Jack's been on, so if you're in football, if you're in tennis, if you're in marketing, if you want to lead people, the storytelling that you'd use is to engage. Now, let's say you're the CEO, or you're someone that really has got a big team to influence, or you really want to make a difference and lead people with your vision. You just don't want to engage, you want to inspire. Now, if you've tuned into the 100 Days Pump, you'll know there's the difference between inspiration and motivation. Now, inspiration is very external. What I mean by external is that we get inspired, or we are inspired. It's something that sort of happens to us. And Julie Kenny's tuning in from inside. I'm out in the office. She's inside. Hello, Alison Randall. Inspiration comes from the word in spirit, right? So we end up in spirit, and we end up pumped. We end up excited because we look at what other people have done, and we listen to stories about achievement. We listen to stories about what people have managed to overcome, or to materialize in their world, to build, to produce, to achieve. So inspiration, really important, because it gets in people's hearts and minds. Now, I'm going to tell you a lot tonight that if it's for a story, sweating, I've just been doing a bit of running, sorry team, and I should have the aircon on, but it's a bit loud. So inspiration is really around people being moved by the story, and not so much moved to take action. What you're doing when you're inspiring someone is you're changing a belief system. You're actually showing them what's possible. And you're starting to get them in spirit to go, well, hold on a second, if you can do it, I can do it, right? So that's the inspiration piece. Remember, at the moment, we're only inspiring, we're not motivating yet. Let's talk about motivation. If you want to tell a story, if you, for example, are a salesperson like I am, and sometimes, Angela Wright, hello, thanks for tuning in, and Tracy, if you're someone who does the work like I do, consulting, and sometimes you're selling coaching, or you're selling from stage, motivation is what you're trying to achieve. So motivation is taking action, right? If you want to, as stories so powerful for getting people to take action. And hello Anthony, how are you, mate? And you'd be and Dale Critchley, thanks for joining in. So you want to be very specific when you're telling that story about. It's got to be very relevant. I'm going to tell you how to craft a story soon. Remember, we're not even at the storytelling piece because there's so much that goes before it. When you're sitting down to decide whether how you're going to tell a story, hello Amanda, and what you're going to tell, step back a little bit, team. Step back a bit and work out why. We're only at the why yet, and we're 8 minutes in. So we're only at the why you would tell a story yet. You're either going to engage, you're either going to inspire, you're going to motivate. Motivate's internal, inspiration's external, motivate's internal. So you get people to take action, whether it's to improve their work performance. We do safety, we do culture in businesses, or whether it's to buy something from you as a salesperson selling from stage, for example. So motivation, another really key reason for storytelling. Now, when you're thinking about your storytelling, when you've got one of those three things, when you're working out, hello Alana Major and Jared Harmon, Lewis King, when you work out why you're telling the story, let's go to the how. Let's go to the who before we do how. Who? Who's in the audience? Now, three things that I want to share with you. Audience, grab a pen and paper, you might want to be writing. Let's talk about the who. And there's an ABC when you're thinking about storytelling of the who. Think about the audience. Think about their belief system, and think about their, g'day Jared, and the context. The context, A, B, C. Who's in your audience? Why do you want to know that, team? Because storytelling, like presenting, like public speaking, is connection. You want to be able to hit someone in the heart, and particularly the heart, not so much the mind. So with storytelling, be very clear on who it is you're speaking to. If you're talking to CEOs, you're going to tell a different story than if you're talking to elite athletes, for example. If you're talking to, I'm doing a child program next 2 weeks. We're going out into schools and teaching kids how to be entrepreneurs, right? The stories that I tell them are going to be so much different than I would out in the workplace if I was talking to a group of managers, for example, on how to change the culture in their business. So understand your audience very clearly, and I'll tell you how to do that. Ring them before you even get there, and understand what it is that they might need from you in a professional context, if that's why you're telling a story. if it's a one-on-one, for example, as a coaching conversation, again, just understand who it is you're talking to. And then go one step deeper. Understand what their beliefs are. This is really, really important when it comes to storytelling, and no one really thinks about this stuff. You want to know what people's beliefs are if you can. I'm going to tell you why. Because when you're storytelling, it's very, very hard to hit people in the heart if you violate their belief system. Now, I'm going to leave that one with you. Sit on that. Tick number 1, or message number 5 probably so far. Don't violate people's belief systems when you're storytelling, right? There's another conversation that goes around that sort of stuff. But when you're storytelling, be very, very mindful of the beliefs that people hold near and dear to their heart. Be aware, be understanding. Hello, Dan Whitmore and Damien Carr. So just be alert to how people are going to feel and how people are going to react to the story, right? And, you know, the whole reason of the story might be to challenge some belief systems, and that's cool. And as long as that's what you're there to do, that's fine. But if you're there to engage, if you're there to inspire, you're there to motivate, you want to just be careful how you're framing your story and how your beliefs are coming through. People with the same beliefs connect, right? So it's a tip, team. It's a tip. It'll bring you unstuck every time if you haven't thought about what people believe deep down in their heart of heart, what they value. So you don't want to challenge people's value system while you're telling them great stories. The other thing that I want you to think about around the C is the context. G'day, Joey Guinea, a fantastic storyteller, Joey Guinea. Joey, you're joining at the right time, my man. We're just talking about the who of storytelling. We're talking about audience. We're talking about belief system of your audience. Now we're going to talk about context. Understand the context of the story, because you really want to contextualize it. Make it real for them. Make it real for your audience, or make it real for the person that you're talking to. Remember, storytelling can be one-on-one, or it can be 1 on 1,000. Just depends on what you're doing. And not only the context of the story that you're telling, but also remember the context, I guess, of the environment, of the individual, of the workplace, of the situation. You know, everything needs to be in context, team. Everything needs to be in context, so that, again, this is about rapport. This is about connection. If you're out of context with people, you'll never ever hit them in the heart and mind, and you'll never ever connect with people through storytelling. Brent Sweeney, haven't seen you forever, man. Hope you're going well. So, storytelling. Let's now, 12 minutes in, we've done the why, we've done the who. Now let's do the how. And Riley, thanks for joining us, mate. Let's do the how now. Tune in, team. Get your pen and paper ready. Stories are like a good roller coaster. Stories are like a great roller coaster. Very, 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 very clear and slow. Very, very precise. Very measured. Very controlled. Seatbelt. Very protective. Sometimes slow, sometimes straight into it. Stories have a very, very specific start. Very, very specific start. And you want to be clear with your audience, and you don't, you can say, look, I'm going to tell you a story about this now. Other times, for example, when might I use stories? I might use stories even when I'm starting a session, or I'm starting a presentation. Sometimes when I get introduced by the MC or whoever it is there that's running the conference or the seminar or the day or whatever, I might just walk into the room and not say anything, like no hello, no how are you doing, because I don't believe in that as an intro. I'll walk in and I'll just start a story. So I'll just go straight into it. My favourite one is always just doing these ones because people understand this body language. Oh, look, I took a call the other day, and you know, it was from this lady who was having really whatever. So I go, so you can launch straight into a story, bang. People know, people get it straight up. As long as you are very, very specific and clear and are very solid in your wording and the way that you kick your story off. Now, once you kicked it off your roller coaster, now we start going up. Before you even start, team, what I want you to do is I want you to write these two words down too. Before you even open your mouth for a story, I want you to know this. What is my key message? What is my key message? Hello, Kerry Lyle, school teacher. Great. Kerry be a great storyteller. Thanks for joining us. What is my key message, team? Don't start talking till you're very, very clear on that. And again, that comes back to the why. That comes back to the who. Why? Why are you doing this? Again, is to come up with a purpose and a key message. The who, the A, B, C. And now we've started our story and we're very, very clear on our key message. And not long after the start of your story, you want to rip into a key message. You want to rip into that key message so that people know exactly what they're in for during the story. And you don't have to frame it up and say, well, my key message for this story is, hello, Ann Webster. You can if you want to. You don't have to, though, but just be very, very clear on what that is. And Carolyn Hill, how are you all the way from the UK? So, start very, very clear. Matt Doyle, thanks for joining us. Be very, very clear on your key message. Now, what I want you to do when you're telling stories, team, and this is going to make or break your story, is do the detail. Do the detail. So think about, and the best way for me to describe this one is when you go to a job interview these days. I haven't been to one for a very long time, but I remember, and I still coach HR, senior HR people, and the process for job interviewing is very situation specific. So if you went to a job interview, what people will ask you, can you tell me about a time when? Whoa! Prep for a job interview is the best prep for storytelling. If you've ever prepped for a job interview and you've nailed it in a job interview, you are a master storyteller already. You just don't know it yet. So, hello, Roz Waters. Thanks for joining in. So, you know that story that you tell in a job interview where they say, have you ever dealt with conflict? Now, if you were very specific and do the detail in that story, if you said, right, it was, and you can get as pumped, as passionate as I do, or you can have whatever passion looks like for you. And we're going to talk about getting pumped and getting excited when you tell stories soon. Not yet, though. If you said, right, I can give you an exact example, Paul. Thanks for asking. That's a great question. It was a Tuesday morning, and we were under the pump. And Paul and I had this big challenge, and we had to get this monthly report out. And do you know what? We had different views on how it should look. You know, I knew we had a procedure, and Paul wanted to deviate from that. Now, you wouldn't believe how such a little thing could cause. Now, it was Tuesday morning, and we only had till Tuesday night. Now, you know, and Paul was really animated in the situation. And, you know, he used these specific words were that we don't need to follow the procedure. And now that didn't resonate with me. Blah, 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 blah. Do the detail. If you're going to get people engaged in a story, team, look, it's all about putting them in there. Think of the best novel that you ever read. Think about I'll have one here somewhere soon. Oh, look, straight off the bat, think about the best books that you've ever read. This is a storybook, The Go-Giver. It's a little story about a powerful business idea. Stories sell because they hit people in the heart. And stories that are specific and that do detail really hit people in the heart. As much detail as possible. Write it out, team. Write it out. So you can imagine how alert you are. Just imagine this. Imagine sitting so now we've done the start and you're at the top of the roller coaster and people on this roller coaster with you. Now, you'll know not long after you've started a story whether you've got engagement. You'll see it. You feel it. You know what it feels like when you're engaged with someone and you're eyeball to eyeball and you're lost in the moment and you're just cranking and you're in rapport and you're telling this great yarn and, you know, they're on the edge of their seat. It's like a great joke, I suppose, and they're on the edge of their seat. You know, you imagine when you're sitting on a roller coaster, that alertness that you've got, you know, and you're just in the moment. You're in the zone. You're right there. Holy shit, what's going to happen next? I'm ready for this, right? And that's what people are like when they're waiting for you to keep going through your story. And stories can last, what do roller coasters last? A minute? 2? I don't know. And stories can last 2 minutes, or they can last 10, or they can last an hour, depending on, but you've got to keep the enthusiasm up. Now, and that's the next thing. So we do the detail, but then we emphasize the emotion. Emphasize the emotion, big time, big emotions, massive emotions. Use emotional words. And what you want to do with emphasizing emotions, team, is at all stages through the story, you want to take people up on the energies curve, and then you want to take them back down. Hello, Lynette. So you want to really change the energy level in the room. Now you'll do that with a bit of humor. You'll do that with potentially a bit of engagement. You'll do that with stories of pain and hardship, as people feel your pain, and they sympathise with you, sympathise with what you went through, or they get excited for you because you had such a great experience and you're able to share what that was like. So emphasize the emotion and make sure you take people on an energy journey, team. They don't even know they're doing it. Now, you should be that practiced, and we'll get to this at the end of this. I'm just going to throw something in, sort of. You should be that practiced at your story by the time you tell it, that you're so good at telling your story, you don't have to think about your story. You can think about your audience. Because when you're thinking about your audience, you're so focused on how they're reacting, you can then respond accordingly. So if you're not getting the reaction that you want, change it up, bang, snap out of it and change your story, or be ready to go to the next part of your story that is more high emotion or is low emotion. Now, how do you change emotion up? Well, it's with graphic detail. So the stories that I tell obviously are about the burns incident that I had, and I tell this story about how, second degree burns, and I had some of my skin blown off, and I had some of my face blown off, and some of my skin had to be torn off my hands and torn off my face, and as they tore the skin off my hands, and as they tore the skin, as they peeled it slowly off my face, then cut that skin and had a nice little pile of my skin happening. I tell stories like that. Now, you might not have great yarns like that. Hello, Melissa Glass. Thanks for joining in. You might not have those sort of graphic stories, but yours might be something about your business situation, your business life, or even your school life. You might talk about how you were bullied as a child, and now you're the CEO of the world, and you're the GM of the world. Now you stick up for kids that are bullied at school, or whatever the story might be, or whatever the case may be for you. You've got to hit people in the heart, team. Hit them in the head and they'll make rational decisions. Hit them in the heart and you'll connect with them. You'll connect and they'll make amazing decisions. They'll go on a journey with you, and whether that is to like I say, build culture in your business, or to become a client, whatever it happens to be, hit them in the heart. Now, keep on point, which I sometimes throw stuff in and out. So you want to have a very clear process that you go through. We've had the start. We've had the start. Thanks, Mel. We've had had the process now where we're going up and down on the roller coaster journey. As you're flying through the roller coaster, we're going up, we're going down, and we're pumping along. And each time we hit a really key high or a really key low in our story with massive emotions on how you felt or what happened or what was going on at that time on that Wednesday morning when that car came out of nowhere and you only had a second to react, and you were just so lucky that you swerved and it went up the side of your car, and you were so scared, and you had your wife and the kids in the car, and you were just so lucky, or you're a push bike rider and you should have seen how close they came. Go back to your key message, whatever your key message happens to be, whether it's safety first on a push bike, whatever. Whatever your key message is, whenever you hit your emotional high, this is key, go back to your key message. Now, team, my key message was, or remember that blah, 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 blah. Go down on the emotional curve. Remember, team, that blah, 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 blah. When people are at a peak emotional state, they actually remember. Things sink for them when they're feeling, not when they're thinking. So you want to make sure that when you're telling that story, you go back to your key message a few times during your story. But stay on point, and your key message helps you stay on point. Now, you want to have a very, 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 did I say very, very clear end point. And yes, finish with your key message. And also go back to now. Now we're going to go back to why you're actually telling the story. So is it to engage, is it to inspire, or is it to motivate someone to take action, right? Because once you're finished your story, you actually wanted to be very, very clear in your head what your next step is. So you finish your story, and I never sort of finish a story with, oh, well, thank you, thanks for listening, or that's the end of my story. I sort of go from, and how would I finish the burn story? So safety team, as I've said today, don't let what happened to me happen to you because of the way that you think or you act at work. Really understand that your behaviour has got consequences, not only in life, but in work. And the way that you behave at work, if you want to rush some decisions, guess what? You might end up like I did, with your skin peeling off, and guess what? You won't be able to wipe your backside for the next 6 weeks on your own, which would really suck. And that's crappy, so to speak. And team, thanks team, yep, great, good. Good stuff. Now look, when you leave today, what I'm going to ask you to do is, I'm going to ask you to really focus on your work, or really so really understand why it is that you're there telling that story, so that you can go back to that at the end of the story, because you want to start with your why and you want to finish with your why. So before we get to all of this though, I want to talk to you about prep. I want to talk to you about making sure that you have done so much work and so much preparation that you can roll this story off and just smash it out without even thinking about it. Now, 3 minutes on the clock, team, and I'm ruthless with time. It's a 30-minute session tonight. Thank you very much. Namaste to everyone that's been on board tonight. Russell Ogden's tuned in for the last 3 minutes. This is about prep. Prep, team, so important. Find a significant other. Find someone. I think I said this in the storytelling one. Find someone in the public speaking live that we did. Find someone that will listen to your story and get them to critique your story. And you don't even have to get them to critique it. Tell them the story and be alert enough to understand how they respond. Because the way they respond will tell you how you're tracking with it. So if there's a point in your story where they don't respond, where you get blank looks, where you can see them sort of going, you know that you need to change that piece up. Like I say, write it out. Pretend it's a job interview. Do that much prep that you can't get this wrong, team. Change it up as you need to. And here's a little odd number for you, 5 times. Tell it 5 times to your significant other or to the mirror before you tell it to anyone else. So that when you are telling it in a professional setting, because remember, this is all about storytelling in a professional setting for influence, you want to be on point and you want to be ready to go when you're going to tell this story, right? So it's like a triathlon. You never do anything once for the first time in a triathlon. Never wear new shoes in a triathlon. Guess what? Never do a story for the first time in real life. If you're trying to influence, if it's at a barbie and you're having a beer, it doesn't matter. But in real work life, when you're messing with people's emotions and their life, you want to make sure that your stories are rehearsed and on point, because you want to make sure you've considered who your audience is, what their beliefs are, what the context is, so that you get it right. Team, we've got a minute on the clock. Any final questions, queries, comments before I shut down this live webinar? I hope you've enjoyed tonight. I hope you've got some value. Remember the why, remember the who, remember the how, remember the what. Crank out the stories, team, and influence the bejesus out of people. Have a great storytelling life. Do it for a living because it's great fun. Do it for others, really. Do it to change their lives and to contribute to the planet and the world. and do it to make a difference. And that's what storytelling does. It gives you the ability to make a difference to the world, and that's why we do it. That's why I do it. That's why I'm here tonight, and I hope you got some value from tonight. Team, at 12:29, at 12:30, thank you for everyone for tuning in.